Welcome to Unemployed and Afraid, a podcast that explores the glorious mess of building your own business with the people doing it. I'm your host and fellow business builder, Kim Kerton. Thank you for being here. Let's get into some good, honest, small business chat. I am very glad to be in your ears today, listener. Thank you for choosing this podcast as your business bud. It is my pleasure to keep you going and growing however that looks for you. I have segued myself beautifully there with that whole however it looks for you piece by design. See, this week I have been toying with the idea of what it could look like for me to be employed by someone else. Not a client, I mean being an actual employee. And it's done really weird and wonderful things for my perspective. And I don't actually mean that it scared me into doubling down on the business hustle, which may be what you're expecting. The business hustle is always there. It's never going anywhere. And look, I know no one is more surprised than me to be saying this. And it also goes without saying, do not worry, I will never stop being an entrepreneur. And this podcast certainly isn't going anywhere. It supports way too many business owners for that. But if you've hung around with me for long enough or been in business for yourself long enough, I think you might relate to the story I'm about to tell you. I'll go back first. I wrote an article a while back now that attempted to dispel some of the myths around choosing self-employment over the alternative. There was a shit ton of crappy social media at the time, mainly a viral vid of a young girl who was crying about her first 9-to-5 job after college in the US, asking how anyone does it. And by it, I mean maintain a personal life and do what you need to do in your personal life while working in that 9-to-5 environment. Not entirely unrelatable, but this kind of thinking is what seems to get wrapped up in the choice-making process about creating your own business. Like that, by doing it, by working for yourself, you'll somehow have more time and freedom to live the life you want. Of course, anyone who's actually done it, gone out to work for themselves and create a business will know that and tell anyone who will listen that it's just straight up rubbish. That's just not true. You end up with less time because it's your biggest currency. And you also have so much more on your mind than ever before, making it tough to know when is okay to actually give yourself a break. That decision-making process becomes very cloudy. And we all know you're often working on the fiddly bits you hate doing instead of the fun stuff within the business that you're building. It's just how it goes. We're doing admin, bookkeeping, creating content, learning things, figuring out legals or websites or whatever, and all the little irritating things that don't always feel that enjoyable. And most of the time, I'm sure you feel this, you can't identify if what you're working on is actually even the most important thing to be working on right now, or if maybe you're in some sort of self-sabotage cycle because you have 17 different jobs to do and it all feels like it's the most important thing. Anyway, this is starting to feel like therapy for me, so I'll get myself back on track. In this article, I called out what I believe to be the heart of entrepreneurship, which is autonomy and meaningful work. On the meaningful work front, I really believe that the real motivation behind people thinking they want to leave the security of a 9-to-5 job and embark on an entrepreneurial journey is the desire to engage in more meaningful work. So many of us who have dipped a toe into corporate have spent years dedicating our time and energy to goals that in the grand scheme of things may not contribute significantly anywhere, but particularly maybe don't align with the type of work we truly want to do. But many of us also can't articulate what it is we truly want to do. And we kind of need that trial and error process to figure it out. We need time and we need trying things out. What always remains is that entrepreneurs are driven by a vision to make an impact, to do something meaningful with their work. And I don't just mean meaningful in the sense of giving back. I mean meaningful in their own lives and ideally, hopefully, often the world around them. It can be the lives of their family, but more broadly, society and our planet. But put simply, I feel like us entrepreneurs want to see an idea that we have be real in the world. And all of this feeling, it changes and it dials up and down over time, and the focus of that thing we want to build can change. So that's like some of the meaning part that I talked about in the article and think about often. But then there's the autonomy part. So much of working for ourselves comes back to this. And I suspect it's what that girlie crying about her 9-to-5 was trying to articulate. Personal agency is just so important, and particularly, I believe, for entrepreneurs. And it's not always as available as we'd like it to be. But like honestly, what I've realized is that's true no matter what work you do, what it looks like, whether you're a full time business builder, a side hustler with a full or part time gig, or full time employed as your sole focus. There is obligation everywhere. You just have to find what the right balance is for you. And anyone promoting to you that running your own business gives you 100% autonomy is only giving you half the story, or they're probably trying to sell you something. Autonomy is so much about choice, choosing what our world looks like and why. Sometimes what you need to choose surprises us, which is kind of how I've ended up here. One of the things I've realized lately is how much I miss working with other creative people who care about the wild world of podcasting just as much as I do. Like, I love to talk about podcasting. You've probably figured that out if you've listened to a few episodes. I'm like super passionate about the industry, and working with other people gets the best out of me. Like being able to bandy around ideas and learn with other people. And I would like more opportunities to do that. And perhaps right now my business isn't in the position in which to hire people to do that with. I've also got a ton of big ideas and big ideas that I've been thinking about for quite some time that might need partners. And I'm often pitching these new ideas and conversations I have along the pathway. And that partnership might end up looking like a business arrangement, or it could look like an employment structure, depending on what's right for the idea. But however it looks is becoming less important to me than the opportunity to do work that's important to me, provided I never lose the ability to be entrepreneurial. And this might be something that you can relate to. I've never actually been anti working for others. I just love the entrepreneurial spirit, and I love the ability to explore new ideas and see them through and to learn how to back yourself into that stuff. And I think you can have an entrepreneurial spirit, but not necessarily have the self belief or, a million other things that make you take the action. And through the process of considering what my next couple of years might look like, which I've been thinking about quite a lot lately, it's reinforced for me that it's perfectly okay to dial up and down where and how you work, what you work on. None of this is fixed. You don't make one decision and then that decision is what you do for the entire future, or even sometimes just for the few years ahead of you. So maybe it's a full-time business owner for a while, or maybe then you balance being an employee alongside of it, maybe take a break from your business for a focused time and come back to it refreshed. There's just so many options if you take the pressure off. And then there's the financial side of things. If maybe you've considered as well, being like, what would it be like to take on some employment either alongside or full-time or whatever? Maybe you're craving a bit of financial security for a while. I've definitely thought a bit about that lately. And not that being employed guarantees that we have security. We have to be realistic about that. Nothing is guaranteed. But for all of us, it is that financial security, no matter where that comes from, that allows us to do what we want to do, to access that personal autonomy that we all crave. And as long as we're never allowing ourselves to stand in the way of trying, of backing ourselves when it comes to our goals in business, it doesn't really matter how it looks, how long it takes, how it changes through that process. Yes, what I'm saying here is that there may be a time that the type of work you want to do brings an opportunity or a need to be an employee. Maybe it's full-time, part-time for a short time, and maybe everything else you want to do entrepreneurially has to take a different form from time to time. Nothing about this gig, about building your own business or creating something for yourself, should be set in stone. What you are building yourself is deeply personal, and you should never feel like any change is a failure or like it's forever. And that's a big one. Everything we do is a season. It's just a season. The choices you make for today might bring change in the future. In fact, they probably should bring a bit of change. This thinking, it was crystallized through a conversation with one of my most adored business buds recently. They had a business model when they started that service clients, and they shifted from that to a more educational offering that was maybe less like one-on-one with clients, or, maybe a bit more passive, which is, I don't like that word passive because it's it all still takes work. But they have recently gone back to servicing clients and felt a little bit of anxiety around the idea of doing this and even around actually doing it. Like making this change would feel restrictive. But guess what? It didn't. In fact, it unlocked something, revenue, yes, which can bring security, yes, which can bring new opportunities and good working vibes and great people and just new opportunities and a a new love for an older gig or something that you had done before. Working on the things that matter to you is what's important. Backing yourself that you have what it takes to do whatever you want is important. Learning to embrace fear as growth edge and kind of fun is important. Knowing that it doesn't matter how it looks for how long and embracing that change is the only constant is what really matters. And any internet guru that tells you otherwise should be put in the bin. IMO. Doing work that you find valuable, exploring your ideas, like perhaps not all the time, like that's just not real life, but most of the time, and having a sense of autonomy or agency over your life is, what's valuable and what dials up and changes and looks different. So I'm not exactly sure where my business is heading right now. Like nothing is changing right this second. I'm just thinking and exploring. All things could change tomorrow, given I've put a number of ideas and pitches and all sorts of things out into the world. And there's probably opportunities floating around that I'm not even aware of that might land in my inbox or into conversations. But what I know is as an umbrella, through this pathway of backing myself to live in a little bit of untethered, a little bit of fear, has led me to realize that working on building brands, podcasts for their businesses, being a service-based solopreneur, and also like just generally working in podcasting, but also creating this pod for you as a passionate creator, like that's what I do. However, the structure of that evolves and whatever new comes into that, I'm open to it. We've got to stay open to it all. That is the fun of having an idea and working on what creating it looks like. And that is the entrepreneurial spirit. I'll always back myself as an entrepreneur, and I just can't put that genie back in the box now. Like once you do it, you're just like, well, okay, this is a thing now. But it well and truly just has that life of its own. And I hope you will always back yourself too, whatever that looks like, however hard it is along the journey, however many times it changes. Listener, I would love you to tell me something. I would love to know if listening to this, like deeply personal share that I've just dropped into your headphones has provided you some value. And I know I ask you a lot, but that's because it's really important. I would love you to leave the show a review, follow Unemployed and Afraid on Instagram and TikTok, find me on LinkedIn and talk to me. Tell me about your business experience, how it's going for you, what you're learning, how you're personally evolving. We are always better together and always better when we lift each other up. So no matter what your world looks like today, what it might look like tomorrow, let's just go get it.
Thank you for listening to Unemployed and Afraid, the podcast for small business builders with your host, me, Kim Kerton. If you love it, you can say thanks with a star rating and a review. And of course, join the community on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Find us at Unemployed and Afraid wherever you're hanging out, and I'll see you there.